This episode is brought to you by Google Gemini. With the Gemini app, you can talk live and have a real-time conversation with an AI assistant. It's great for all kinds of things, like if you want to practice for an upcoming interview, ask for advice on things to do in a new city, or brainstorm creative ideas. And by the way, this script was actually read by Gemini. Download the Gemini app for iOS and Android today. Must be 18 plus to use Gemini Live.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. And for all the introverts out there that want to become influencers, Stacy is the guest for today's show, and she is going to talk to us about helping introverts unlock their leadership superpower. She hails from New Jersey, a state that I lived in for a number of years, and I'm really happy to have her on the show to talk about it. So, Stacy, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, briefly introduce yourself, and I'm excited to dive into the questions.
Great. So my name is Stacy Chazen. I am the founder of iFactor Leadership. Igniting introverted leadership is my passion and my mission. And what that means is I guide introverted professionals to identify and then tap into their innate introverted gifts to be recognized for their leadership, to thrive at work, to show up as their best selves, and then get the recognition and rewards that they deserve.
Yeah, really fascinating. And like I said, I really personally resonate with it because I'm an introvert myself, and I always question, like, why do the loud people or the obnoxious or just very overly aggressive people, they seem to get ahead. And so we'll dive into it, start adding value to the audience, is why and how introverts make great leaders.
My favorite question. And I will say, just to respond to what you said, folks don't even have to be obnoxious, or what was the other word you used?
There's very aggressive,
Don't even have to be those things, because that's not, I wouldn't describe extroverts that way. Some, of course, but really just that extroverted mindset and preference is what really helps them to excel. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But we as introverts have so many innate abilities and preferences and gifts that just simply get overlooked because they're not aligned with society's typical perceptions of what make a strong leader. So I'll give you some examples. Introverts tend to be highly empathetic and have very high levels of emotional intelligence. This is such an important leadership trait because as a leader, when you're emotionally intelligent, you're able to really see and appreciate the people you work with, to see their priorities, to see their needs, to understand what they need from you to show up as their best selves. How can you best support them and build their capacity to become leaders? So that's a super important one that I always like to start with.
Yeah, I really like that. And the top of mind question is, and I think the audience will resonate with this, is it better for introverts to go out and become solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, start their own businesses, create their own cultures, versus fight this? Again, the system is geared towards extroversion and type A or alpha behavior. Thoughts?
I don't think it's one or the other. I think that you can be in either environment and succeed. The key to doing it, and this is where I center my coaching, is the key is to identify what your unique innate strengths are as an introvert or as an overall human, and then tap into those strengths to be able to thrive in either one of those scenarios. So I guide my coaching clients to identify something called their positive core. And that's part of my coaching framework. Is called appreciative coaching. And at its core, so to speak, is the notion of the positive core. And your positive core is really the best of who you are. So if you think back to peak experiences you've had in your life, you can start to identify what traits or skills or activities you brought to those situations that made them highlights for you. And typically the commonalities you'll see across those peak experiences, those will make up your positive core. So to simplify it, an example could be you're a really strong writer, which many introverts are. And introverts also tend to be very good at diffusing conflict. We're good at staying calm, reading between the lines, and then coming up with guidance that reflects our introspection. So taking that principle, you can look at a solopreneurship and say, there are certainly ways that you can bring your introverted positive core to solopreneurship, right? In how you network, in how you market yourself, in how you build your subject matter expertise, build your personal brand that tap into your introverted strengths. And you can do those same things if you're in a big practice or a larger environment where you're one of many who are working. You can still tap into your introverted positive core and figure out how can you do things the introverted way. Don't try to pretend to be an extrovert, but tap into the best of who you are, your authentic self, and you can thrive in either scenario.
Yeah, interesting. The kind of talking about workplace challenges, if you're in a very, for example, if you're yeah, just give a stereotypical example, if you're working on Wall Street and you're an introvert, obviously you have less likely chance. But what are common challenges introverts face? Like, what should they do in these environments to get noticed? Because obviously their innate traits are not matching with the environment that they're working in. How can they navigate?
Yeah, and I think I will say that introverts can be successful in any environment, in any career. And it's a few things. It's one, doing what I just described, finding your positive core and figuring out how to use it. And the other thing is letting the people around you know what you need to be most successful. So letting your manager know, for example, if you want some big ideas from me, you're not going to get those, or I wouldn't say it that way. The best way you're going to get big ideas from me is if you give me an opportunity to consider your questions, consider the solution, to sit with it, to marinate, think through it, have an opportunity to get data, research context, and give it some thought rather than coming up on the fly with a quote unquote brilliant idea that might not really reflect the best that I can give.
Yeah. And so moving on is this, if a lot of people listening to this, they're doctors and lawyers, some of them are introverts as well. And if, for example, managers, leaders are listening to this and they manage a team of different styles, what things should they pay attention to? Because sometimes introversion is mischaracterized as weakness or softness or just meekness. How do you identify that and address that in your team?
Yeah, great question. So, two things. One, I always recommend the first time a team comes together, whether it's an ad hoc team for a project or a new team that's going to be standing and working together for a while, is at your first meeting together, have everyone go around the table and each person share what is it that you want the rest of the team to know about what you need to work at your best. And that's your opportunity as an introvert, as an extrovert, whoever you are, to say, here's what I need from you. So an introvert might say, hey guys, what I need is before every meeting, it's really helpful if I get the agenda in advance. And really that's a best practice for everyone, I'd say. Get the agenda in advance so I can prepare my talking points, get the data I need. And if we're tackling a big problem, I'd like to have the opportunity to share my ideas in writing. Or it could be something like, I want you to know that I'm going to do my best work if I have an opportunity to have a mix of group work and individual work time. Because when I do the individual work, that's when I'm going to recharge, and I'm really going to get a chance to put my head in things in a way that's going to produce the best ideas out of me. So that's the first thing. And so that's really explicitly hearing from your team members about what they need. But then you can also pay attention to clues. So as a manager, pay attention. Am I seeing that this person is writing to me, sending me an email instead of wanting to share ideas in front of a group? Or are they tending to show up in my office and say, hey, can we meet one-on-one so I can talk through this challenge or this idea with you? You can pick up on some context clues that are going to say to you, hey, it seems like this person might have a preference for introversion. And you can start to support them in ways that are aligned with that, right? Making sure that they don't have back-to-back meetings in a given day, because that's really going to suck our energy as introverts. Mm-hmm. So the key is giving them the support, the space, and the opportunities that are going to let them tap into their gifts.
A follow-up question is workplace bullying, and how do introverts navigate that? Because they're often targets of bullies or just passive aggression. How do you address that as an introvert?
As an introvert, and I think this is true for anyone, right? If you're in a situation like that where you're really being bullied, I'd recommend going to your manager. or if that doesn't get you anywhere, going to your HR department. But as introverts, we're so good at reading nuances, right? It's that high level of emotional intelligence where you can step back. And I really believe that anytime there's bullying, it's not about you, it's about the other person. Whenever someone treats you in a negative way, it likely has something to do with the stuff that's going on in their head, challenges they're facing. And I think that we're very good at, as introverts, at stepping back, taking in that context, and being able to identify what are this person's priorities or needs, or what's the challenge that they're then taking out on me. And maybe by stepping back in that way, you can then communicate in a way that acknowledges their needs, acknowledges their challenges. And if that doesn't work, then get other folks involved.
Yeah, interesting. Moving on to networking, what networking approaches work best for introverts that allow them to remain authentic while still building valuable connections?
Great question. And I'm going to have for you, I'll share a download link that you can share with your listeners after. I wrote a free conference survival guide for introverts that shares some of these strategies as well as others. And in that guide, and in what I'll share with you now, going back to your positive core, what are you really good at as an introvert? And here's how you use this in networking. We're really good at preparing. We're really good at doing our research, and we tend to be very detail oriented. So how you can apply that to networking is this. Before, let's say you have a 3-day conference. What I say is, for each day that you're at a conference, you want to identify ahead of time 3 people who you want to meet. And you can typically see this on a conference app or a conference website where you can see the enrollment list. Identify 3 people for each day. Do your research, read up on them, on their website, on their LinkedIn page. So you're getting to know them ahead of time. And then identify for yourself, what's the one thing that you want to get out of the conversation? So it could be a piece of advice. Maybe they wrote a paper that you want to learn more about, or maybe you want a job with their organization. Jot down these notes for yourself so you're going into it with a game plan. And maybe even come prepared with an icebreaker question for each person. So you're alleviating that social anxiety that you might feel when meeting a new person. And then after you've met your 3 people for a day, you've done your due diligence, you can check them off your list. If you meet anyone else that day, that's great, but you've alleviated that pressure of having to meet, quantity over quality. And then after the meeting, once you get back to your home office or wherever your office is, send the person an email, reference what you talked about during the conversation. So you want to take some notes as soon as your day is over, write down what you talked about with each of the 3 people, and then follow up acknowledging, here's what we talked about. I appreciated our conversation, and here's how I'd like to keep in touch, or here's a follow-up step I'm hoping we can engage in together.
Yeah. Talking about negotiation and self-advocacy, I remember whenever these things, you had to speak up, I remember having a lump in my throat and just butterflies in my stomach. So how can introverts prepare for and excel in negotiations, whether it's salary, proposals, leadership roles? Discuss.
Great. Yeah. And this is another free download. I'll share with you some negotiating tips for introverts. So a lot of the same things, you want to tap into your positive core. So preparation for negotiating, this means do your research, find out what people at the same level or at same levels and experiences and expertise as you, what are they making in similar roles? So you want to come prepared with data so that you can build your case for what it is you're asking for. The next thing you want to do is you want to really pay attention to body language during your negotiating meetings, right? If is leaning forward, it probably means that you're talking about something that resonates with them. If they lean back and they're crossing their arms, it might be suggesting they're feeling defensive. And you need to recalibrate to say, okay, that's not something that it is connecting with them, but let me shift where I'm focusing. Another piece is you want to make connections between what you're asking for and either the team or the organization's overarching goals. So it's not just, I did this work and I think I deserve a 5% raise, but I did this work. And as a result of this new software system that I created and led the implementation of, the organization was able to expand by X and increase its revenue by Y, right? Showing that you understand the connection between what you've done and the broader organization and driving home the impact that you've had.
Yeah. Yeah. Nick, there's always, from what I gather talking to you, there's always a way to navigate it. It's just tapping into, because it's not going to be like a traditional way. It's just, which brings me to my next question is transforming introversion into a professional strength. Again, there's like this misconception that introversion is weakness, but can you share a personal story where embracing your introversion directly contributed to a professional success or breakthrough?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So I will say, so for me, writing is one of my introverted superpowers. And I've really, as I've launched my own coaching business, and being a coach as an introvert brings with it a unique set of challenges, right? Your task is to engage with other people. And as you're building your business as an entrepreneur, it's putting yourself out there in ways that can feel really uncomfortable for introverts. I heard advice from others that I should launch a YouTube channel, which I'm now thinking about, but I really wasn't ready to do that when I first started this venture. And so I started off with blogging, and I publish a blog post every week. And this is such a great example, I think. A couple months ago, I was at a local community organization's awards dinner, and I was sitting across the table from someone I knew just casually. And over the din of the crowd, she said, "Stacy, I want you to know I love your blog posts. They just really resonate with me. And I so appreciate your writing," and et cetera, et cetera. I sent her a message the next day on LinkedIn telling her how much I appreciated that, how much it meant to me. Because you never know when you put something out into the electronic universe, you never know if anyone is looking at it even, or how it's landing, how it's connecting with them. So I connected with her to say thank you. I appreciated it, blah, blah, blah. We decided to meet for coffee. And as a result, she has since connected me with two other people in her professional network who've opened doors I never could have expected for me. And it was all because I went to this dinner that I almost didn't go to because I wanted to just stay in my cozy introverted home. And it was cold outside, but I did. I pushed myself. And you just never know when something you're doing as simple as writing a blog post, if you consider that simple, what that then led to.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, it's just you never know who's listening or reading or watching, and it's usually not the people that are commenting or liking or sharing. It's just I've noticed that, and yeah, you never know what one action can lead to fruitful. That's been same for speaking or writing or new opportunities. How can people find you and follow you and reach out to you and get some coaching or some more insights and work with you?
Thanks for asking. So folks can find me at ifactorleadership.com. The I is for introvert, ifactorleadership.com. And when you go there, you'll see a few options that you can click on the tab to talk to me about coaching. I have a 6-month coaching program that's rooted in the Myers-Briggs type indicator assessment. So we start off with that, and then I help you to discover your positive core and plan for a professional future that taps into that. I also have an on-demand course that many introverts like because they don't engage, primarily not engaging with other people. That's called the Introverts Leadership Formula. And it focuses on strategies to help you become a more powerful communicator, to prevent introvert burnout at work. And then literally, how do you ask for a raise or promotion in a way that makes it hard for decision makers to say no? So find me at ifactorleadership.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn at ifactorleadership.
Yeah, excellent. And again, keep up the great work. Thanks for coming on and sharing it. And it's great to meet a fellow introvert. And
Chris, thank you.
And happy holidays.
Same to you.